See,
is cruel.
I don't think this is funny. I think when you're ready for your cookies, you're getting excited. You know, you have to like work and open up the box and pull the cookies out, and you're excited about it, and then you get that.
Toothpaste just stuck in between, like that. This is why
It's just not right.
This is why I mostly eat Chips Ahoy, because you can't mess with Chips Ahoy.
Hey, but while we're talking about things that aren't right, are you making fun of me with these glasses today? What is this?
What do you mean? This is what I usually wear.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
They look like plastic ones that you bought at the store to make fun of me.
They're not plastic. They're like $300.
Oh, okay. Never mind. What's coming up next?
I can't believe you think I'm imitating you right now, but whatever. After this, we are going to have an interview about education. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Good Evening KU. I'm Libby, and this is Emily. She is an education major. Emily, tell me, who has inspired you to want to become a teacher?
I think, well, I have a lot of teachers in my family, so that was one of my inspirations. And then also my kindergarten teacher. She made it feel like such a great experience, and I was so comfortable with her, and I was kind of afraid to leave home, but it was such a great year for me.
Yeah, I totally understand that. What age group do you want to teach?
I want to do kindergarten, really, because of her, yeah. I love the little babies.
What do you think are going to be some difficulties about teaching such a young age group?
I think it's going to be kind of difficult because I know I was afraid to go to kindergarten, and so I'm kind of worried that they might not be very comfortable, and I just want to really make it like a homey environment for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell me how you get into the education program here at KU.
There's an application that you have to fill out, and you have to have various references for it, and you also have to have, you do like a few essays for it.
Okay, so what are some things that you're gonna do like when you're an upperclassman?
Well, I'm gonna be like a junior next year, and I'm actually gonna start my practicum, which is when I will be observing in classrooms. So it's gonna be some real hands-on experience, and I can't wait for that.
That's gonna be awesome. And then do you student teach ever?
Yeah, I'm gonna student teach my senior year.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yes.
Well, Emily, I know that you are a huge One Direction fan.
I am.
So am I.
Yes.
Who is your favorite?
My favorite is Harry Styles. I love him so much.
How did you feel about Zayn leaving last week?
Oh, I was so sad. He, I think, has the best voice. I love Harry, but I think Zayn has the best voice. And so it was so hard for me to see that he's not going to be in One Direction.
Yeah, it was just a disaster to see
Bad
him
thing.
leave. But I don't know if you've heard, but right before this, I checked my phone, and E has announced that One Direction is breaking up because Harry Styles is leaving.
Stop.
I'm serious.
Libby.
I'm
No,
not
they're
kidding.
not.
Yeah, they're done.
What?
I'm really sorry to all you One Directioners at home.
Stop.
April Fool!
Oh my God!
Okay, when we come back from our break, we're going to have Bella Without Borders, so stay tuned.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Welcome back. Today we have Heba Mustafa for Bella Without Borders, and we're going to talk about Islamic architecture. Heba is with the Department of Art History and teaches Islamic architecture and urbanism. So today we're going to talk a little bit about mosques, churches, temples, and all, Islamic architecture and how that ties into one another. So first and foremost, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Bella.
So if you could tell our audience, the origins of Islamic architecture. We'll start from there.
Great. So what's really interesting about Islamic art is that, first of all, it began in the 7th century with the foundation of Islam as a religion in modern-day Saudi Arabia. And what's interesting about Islamic architecture is that as a culture and an art form, it originated in a part of the world that was very central in the ancient world. So with the rise of Islam and the development of the empire, the ancient Near Eastern world of Iraq and Iran and the ancient Mediterranean world of Greater Syria, Egypt, and North Africa came under the control of one empire. So in a sense, you have very rich and ancient artistic and architectural traditions coming together for the first time. Now, what adds to the kind of the interest in this area is the fact that the religion of Islam brought with it new ideas about how society is structured, of course, how the religion was practiced. So in a sense, when we think about something like the mosque in relation to other types of houses of worship in the ancient world, we really see some really interesting engagement. On the one hand, the mosque continues and elaborates on some of the ideas from the ancient world, but it also innovates and adds new dimensions.
That's very interesting. So if you can maybe talk about, because, you know, we talk about Islamic architecture and we're talking about mosques, can you maybe talk about churches and temples too, because that, you know, has a prevalence in the Middle East. So, you know, how is that different from a mosque?
Okay, so throughout the Middle East and throughout what would have been the historical Islamic empire, you would have had major centers of all the different major religions. So I'm sure, as you're aware, Christianity and Judaism were all born in the Middle East. So in a sense, you have existing traditions of thriving communities that were Jewish and Christian and also non-monotheistic. So some pagan communities still survived in the early Islamic period. So you would have had surviving examples of temples, churches, and synagogues throughout the lands that eventually came under the control of the Islamic Empire. So on one level, the architecture of the mosque actively engaged with these buildings in terms of their language, borrowing and adopting elements from these buildings, but also formulating a new kind of response to these structures, mostly because Islam is practiced in a way that's fundamentally different than how Christianity and Judaism is practiced, but at the same time, in terms of the practice, has actually a lot of features in common with how Christian societies and Jewish societies would have been structured. So a really good example is the mihrab, which is the niche in the wall of the mosque that's facing towards Mecca. So these niches would have existed in contemporary synagogues, for example, and would have been used also oriented towards Jerusalem for prayer. So we're seeing a lot of the language coming from the church and coming from the synagogue filtering through and being incorporated and reinterpreted in a new Islamic context.
Right. So that's interesting. For our audience who, you know, are not sure that what, you know, Middle Eastern mosques or churches or temples really look like, I don't know if you could maybe, you know, give a little view for our audience.
For sure. So by the time the Islamic Empire is established, at this point you don't really have active worship in temples. There were several years of Christian rule, so most of the Middle East was under the control of the Byzantines. So it had been a Christian empire for a very long time. But there were temples that existed, and they would have either been ruins or they would have been sort of incorporated and reused as Christian sites. Okay? So under the Islamic Empire, temples are still being incorporated, but definitely not as places of worship. Elements of temples, though, are being reused. So they would reuse columns or parts of the decoration in their palaces and their mosques. For the church and the synagogue, it's a very different situation because obviously they were active houses of worship in the early Islamic period, and of course, throughout the history of the Islamic Empire. There would have been churches that were constructed during the Islamic Empire and synagogues as well. It doesn't mean that it was as straightforward for these structures to be built under the Islamic Empire because the priorities of the empire were to support and develop mosques, mostly to cater to the needs of the Islamic community, but they certainly were being constructed during the Islamic period.
Right. Well, I think that will wrap up what we're going to talk about. Thank you so much, Heba, for coming in and, you know, telling us a little bit more, and hopefully myself and the audience will learn from that. So thank you, and that will wrap up Bella Without Borders.
Thank you, Bella.
Welcome back to Good Evening KU. I'm Griffin Hughes, and this is your Good Evening KU news update. Indiana Governor Mike Pence said yesterday that he will fix the recently passed religious freedom law. The new law has received tremendous national backlash, with opponents saying that it was allowing discrimination against the gay and lesbian community. According to CNN.com, Pence and top Indiana state legislators are working to clarify the new law. The new host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah, has already stirred up some controversy. According to NBCNews.com, Noah, the South African comedian, is receiving backlash for a few of his past tweets. The tweets cited go as far back as 2009, and critics say the comic's social media is anti-Semitic and even sexist. Noah has declined comment. A Kansas mom is disgusted after a Wichita high school made her special needs son remove a varsity letter jacket. Jalinda Kelly gave her son Michael a varsity letter to put on his jacket. However, Wichita East High School forced him to take it off, saying that he was not a varsity athlete. According to FoxNews.com, Michael plays on the special needs basketball team but still is not allowed to wear a varsity jacket. Legendary rock band the Rolling Stones announced Tuesday that they will be stopping in Kansas City this summer. According to the Lawrence Journal-World, the Kansas City show is part of a 15-stadium tour beginning in San Diego. The concert will take place at Arrowhead Stadium, of course, on June 27th, with tickets going on sale April 13th. An Ohio woman has been charged with felonious assault after allegedly stabbing her boyfriend for eating too much salsa. According to NBCNews.com, 50-year-old Phyllis Jefferson stabbed her 61-year-old boyfriend, Randy Buckner, with a pen after she started screaming about his salsa eating habits. Buckner was taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. In other news, the Kansas Union is adding a Chipotle where the Panda Express used to be. They're tearing down the Campanile, and of course Kansas is now at war with Missouri, so be careful of the draft and everything. Check out the UDK. They apparently nuked Columbia, so take a look at all of your useful information there. The NFL is adding an expansion franchise in Bosnia-Herzegovina. They'll be active next season, so watch them as they play all your favorite NFL teams and cheer on the Bosnia-Herzegovina Mountain Cats next year in the NFL season. We'll be right back with Paige's Points on Good Evening KU.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
What's going on, guys? I'm Paige from Paige's Points, and this week
I'm Paige from Paige's Points. Catch me live next week as I explore more of KU and Lawrence.
watch Good Evening KU next Wednesday, and of course, catch Good Morning KU every day, every weekday. We'll see you next time.
Happy April Fools!